Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Productivity Voice, and I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. We are continuing Women's History Month, and so happy Women's History Month. This is episode 47, and we're going to be talking about productivity and luck. And we're actually going to be announcing the top female productivity organization and technology experts today based on our poll that has been running for the past week. Today is March 15th, 2021, and each week we review and discuss the productivity and technology news headlines of the week. And to do that this week, we've invited Julie Bestry and Deb Lee to join us. Both are certified professional organizers, and I'm just so excited that both of them are also actually Evernote certified consultants. And so let's go ahead and bring them up one by one. So like I said, Julie Bestry, you know her from last week on the show when we were talking about International Women's Day as well as Women's History Month. But Julie Bestry is, as I said, a certified professional organizer as well as an Evernote certified consultant based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Welcome to Anything But Idle, Julie.
Hi, guys.
Welcome. Great to have you back.
Thank you for having me back. That's a good sign.
And as I said, we have Deb Lee. She's a digital productivity coach and an Evernote certified consultant who's based in the Washington, D.C. metro area, a place I know and love. And so welcome to Anything But Idle, Deb.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great to have you as well. This is a first time for you, and so
Yes.
we'll be gentle.
Okay, great.
We'll ease you in. And so, as I noted at the top of the show, Augusto and I decided that we would talk today about luck. And the reason why we're talking about luck today is because in just a couple days' time, it will be March 17th, which some people know colloquially as St. Patrick's Day. And as I am part Irish, my great-grandmother was Irish, I always consider St. Patrick's Day a day when I am fully Irish. I am fully of Irish descent on St. Paddy's Day. And so I wanted to talk with you all about how luck really plays into personal productivity, how it plays into us all being productive. And so let's start off the conversation with that topic. How does luck factor into your own personal productivity?
I think I don't think luck factors in at all whatsoever. I am, as Julie knows, pretty prepared about many things. I like having a plan, even if that plan has to change minutely, constantly, hopefully not. I really like having a set of guidelines. I don't fall into things generally. Things don't fall into my lap. I'm usually prepared. I'm preparing. I'm investigating. I'm discovering. I'm trying. I'm testing. I don't think I allow luck to enter into the equation. Maybe I should, but I tend to be the one that will over prepare and then adjust as I go along. So for me personally, luck has nothing to do with it. Zero.
And so I'll give a kind of different perspective on here, which is I think that I create my luck, which I think I'm saying the same thing you are, which is that I like to be prepared. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I always say that I make luck possible.
Okay.
And by being prepared, by doing all of those things, maybe luck is the thing that kind of pushes it over the threshold. But I've done the work that luck has a better chance. So it's like flipping the script on it, right? I always want to make sure that I'm doing as much as I can to be prepared, and then kind of letting the universe decide at that point whether or not success is going to happen. Much of life really is, at the end of the day, left to chance. We don't actually have a lot of control over our world. And yet we tend to believe that we do. And there are systems within systems that determine much of the courses of our lives. And I always joke, I was a preemie. So as a preemie, I was born ahead of schedule, and that stuck. I always wanted to be ahead of schedule. But there's a reality factor that the luck of surviving as a premature child today has a lot to do with the technology, the medical technology of the prior hundreds of years, and maybe part to the women's liberation movement. A lot of me being alive today has to do with all of that kind of before me, right? And we have to keep in mind that luck is created. It's kind of generated from that perspective, and so that's kind of where my mind comes in when it comes to thinking about luck. How about you, Julie?
Well, I hate to disagree with Deb on anything because I love Deb, but I think I agree with both of you, but I agree more with you, Ray. I think that it's about systems. I think luck is situations combined with preparation. So luck is very much determined by your socioeconomic status. It's determined by the fact that you were born in the late 20th or even early 21st century versus, the 19th or the 18th century. Luck determines whether you are healthy in so many ways. So you have your circumstances and then you have your preparation for it. I think for me personally, so much of the situation I have started with the luck of the circumstances of to whom I was born. My mother, before there was a title for it, my mother was a project manager, and I grew up watching her make lists and figure out, okay, this needs to be done by this date, and it's going to take X number of days plus buffer time, and counting back. So when I was like 3 or 4 or 5, I had a front row seat at domestic project management. And I think that for me was really lucky because it helped create how I viewed all of the ways that I was going to be productive. So I absolutely believe that the circumstances through which that we have no control over determine our luck, but how we take that forward is determined by our preparations, the things that we do in terms of, like Deb said, being ultra prepared. Because if you are ultra prepared for every eventuality, I would say in organizing doesn't prevent a catastrophe necessarily, but it makes the catastrophe less catastrophic. So that's my thought on it.
So I think we are all on the same page. For me, I love that Seneca quote that says, luck is what happened when preparations miss opportunity. And I agree with you that the circumstances help. But that doesn't mean that you cannot work with the circumstances, good or bad, or that just make your path a little bit harder or a little bit longer or a little bit more challenging than others. But I think it's that preparation, that consistent preparation. I said often that productivity is a gift you give to your future self. And I believe this preparation we are talking is that. And yes, luck helps because, luck, the event is coming to happen no matter what. If we get a little abstract in here, and it's going to find who is ready for it. And it's that preparation that is going to make you ready for it.
So I'm curious how you perceive luck in other people's worlds. So if we don't apply this to ourselves, all of us here, on the panel tonight, see our clients, see our customers, see our loved ones experiencing the world potentially well, because they know what good preparation means, and maybe not so well because they're either coming to us for help because they have lacked that structure and organization. How do they talk about luck, and how do you help them deal with the concept of happenstance and the way in which they see change?
I think it has a lot to do with, and I think we talked about this a little, maybe after the show last week, about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. If you think that you have mastery or control over at least some element of your life, you are going to work harder to make changes. So I know people who have had, a life like Job, just like beset and befallen with all sorts of things that nobody would want, but because they still believe that they can make changes, that they can move forward on their own. They may not be able to change the circumstance, but they may be able to work within that circumstance to find someone or something that's going to help move them forward. It's very powerful. And then there are other people, we see this with our clients, I'm sure Deb would agree, that there's that fixed mindset that I'm unlucky, bad things always happen to me. I can't, I can't get better. Nothing can help me. And that's painful, because it's hard to help somebody who doesn't believe truly that they can be helped and be a little luckier.
Yeah, I would agree that there are some clients who feel that they've tried, and each time that trying has ended up in failing or failure. And they're not sure. They're taking sort of that last stab at it. They call me or they call Julie and they say, you're my last hope. You're it. And it is a bit defeatist. It's a little sad because we can change. It may take longer. It may take a really long time. Sort of like you wait for it to find you. And I'm more of I want an opportunity to find me, and I want to be ready for that opportunity. And I want my clients to be ready for that opportunity, whatever that might be, whether it's growing or maybe not growing, but staying where they are and just fine tuning and really polishing those systems and getting them right. So I don't know that people see themselves as unlucky or lucky, but they do see themselves as having tried and not reached the mark that they were trying to reach, falling short. And my job, hopefully, is to help them see that they can indeed, walk the path that they're trying to carve out and end up where they want to be. Perhaps it's more circuitous than they thought at first, but they can actually get there. So I'm hoping that we change their luck, dare I say, with the work that we do together.
Well, it's funny that you... Go ahead, Julie.
I was going to say, I wonder if luck is kind of like privilege, that most people who have it don't see that they have it. There's that expression, being born on third, hitting a single and thinking you hit a home run. And so I think maybe a lot of people who haven't had advantages feel like they're unlucky, but I think even more people who have had a lot of advantages don't necessarily see it as luck or see privilege, something like that. I could be extending the metaphor a little too far. I don't know.
Well, I do see your point there, though. Oftentimes, we're looking for that thing, that magic wand, that thing that's going to turn things around, and we don't realize it's right in front of us all along. We've always had it. We just didn't use it in the way that perhaps we needed to. So I see where you're going. I think there's a distinction between luck and privilege, but perhaps there is some intersection as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also a perspective thing. I remember on my first book, when it published, there is somebody who left a review in Amazon saying, well, obviously the author, English is not his first language, and I don't remember now who was the Russian writer. He quoted me, but it was not exciting. It was a really awesome Russian writer. I was jumping on and out. Okay, with my 2-star review. Okay, and somebody was asking me what up. I said, look at that. There is hope in here. Okay, but what most people don't know is I was 26 when I moved to this country, and I could not say, may I use the restroom? Okay, that was not an option in my vocabulary. So for me, that review said so much on how much progress. So I think those things happen. Coming from a different country, I have here friends and people I know, and even clients saying, well, the discrimination, and yes, the discrimination is there. Okay, there is no discussion about their existence, but also when you are more sensible to it, you also see it on more places than necessarily the actual places that they are. And yes, there is no discussion that exists, but also sometimes some people are more sensible to it and see it really in places where may not has been that the intention of the of the other person. And I think luck is similar in that sense, and things happen and you can look them from the negative perspective, or you can look at it, hey, maybe for a reason.
What Deb was talking about.
Luck.
Yeah, so what Deb was talking about earlier reminded me of a research study that I had to go and find to talk about this, which is that there was a experimental psychologist, Richard Wiseman, who actually did a study where he placed ads in the newspaper and told people that they won money. And this ends up being an issue of self-selection bias. That is, people who believe in luck, who feel more optimistic about them being able to find luck, of course, returned the ad, right? Responded to the ad by and large. And people who did not believe they were going to win, therefore, didn't respond to the ad. And this is probably a bit of discussion on optimism versus pessimism or otherwise. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, though, because those of us who, like you, I believe that I have some level of control and can actually increase the level of control over the course of my life with small, steady interventions. And people who feel both out of control of their life, but also believe in luck, are willing to, say, play the lottery. They're willing to do those kinds of things, and that's totally fine. And then there are those who feel like they are lack control, but are pessimists and therefore will not respond to those things. So there is this much more nuanced perspective. On the one hand, what I think about this as like a general mechanism is that life is suffering. If you are thinking about it from the Buddhist perspective, right? There is this understanding of that, and at the same time, we can lean in to the positive. We can lean into the productive. We can look at the bright side of things, not because we're delusional in the classic psychological definition, but that we can delude ourselves pleasantly into just thinking the best of people. We can also believe the best that will happen, and by virtue of doing that, with preparation, we can actually increase the chance that we're going to have positive outcomes. And so I think we can create our own luck in that way, if I'm so bold to say that. But at the same time, I think that even if you strike out the first 50 times, a sense of optimism allows you to be able to pick yourself back up off the ground and go up at bat that 51st time, and that may be when you hit the grand slam, right? And as someone who is not very good with sports analogies, I am going to go ahead and hope that my analogy was good for everybody.
So that's 2 baseball analogies, 2 baseball metaphors in the course of maybe 5 minutes from 2 people who pay no attention to sports. I think that's pretty good.
Well, you know what? I was a huge baseball fan when I was a kid. The baseball cards and the whole 9 yards. My brother and I just collected every baseball card that was out there. He kept it up. I picked up reading, and sports fell away. I just felt like I was far more engaged in, as Augusto was noting earlier, probably Nabokov and Dostoevsky and so on and so forth. I was far more interested in those words than I were in people hitting balls over fences.
So then would the luck be on that 51st try, standing in the right position, legs angled perfectly, right stance, holding the bat at the right angle, your hand-eye coordination being on point in that moment that the ball heads towards you and you strike it, and is that luck? Would that be luck, or would all of those other things be preparation for that moment when it actually does happen? You've practiced and tried 50 times before, and now it's your time. Or is it luck because of everything lining up the way it should?
Does it have to be either or? I mean,
I don't know. I'm curious.
I mean, if you had parents who never took you to the ballpark and never had the games on and didn't buy you the cleats and didn't throw a ball with you in the backyard, I mean, that's the part that's not in your control. So,
right.
If you didn't have any of those things and you still kept going at it and the 51st try, then you could say, yeah, there's not a lot of luck there. That's all talent and perseverance. But I think for most things, it's probably that combination of lucky circumstance and perseverance.
Well, you could be putting yourself in the circumstance, like putting yourself in a position that would be beneficial to you at some point. I'm not trying to be antagonistic. I just sort of, yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
No, but I believe that person who came into the 51 time, yes, it's true. It's perseverance what got them to that 51
Yes.
time, but it could have been 51 or 67.
Sure.
It's luck that it was 51. And
Okay.
the only reason this person is experiencing that luck is because they had that other element. It's not that that person is luckier. It is that that person had a lot more perseverance than other one who may have quit at 15.
I think this is the most philosophical episode of Anything But Idle that I've ever watched.
I think it's a yes and. I think you're all right
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. There are going to be circumstances where, you could step out into the street and find $100 bill on the ground, and that could be considered luck. But you could also dedicate your time and world to doing something. And if you didn't do that, it's not like you're going to show up to a marathon and win it. You need to practice to some extent in order to be able to get even to the starting line and even plan to place. So there are these two different competing elements here, where there's some parts of your life where you could just have random luck, and that can be a part of it, or random chance that can provide you with what you perceive as luck. And then there are things where you need to prepare, and you can perceive the situation as being unlucky if you lose and give up, but you can also perceive the situation as you having luck eventually and working toward it. And as we're always focused on productivity, I'm focused on what are the things that are going to help motivate someone to do more, be more, and continually want to be better. And so I'm always looking for those little edge pieces. And I think that we can all lean into being a little delusional toward happiness, a little delusional toward being lucky, and we're all going to be better off for it. And so thank you all for this wonderful opening conversation. We're just getting started. We have so much more to talk about today. And Augusto, did you have a little thing that you wanted to add?
I think it's important that I leave the disclaimer here for our panelists, our people who listen. If you guys see me running and I pass you, run. There is something following us. I don't do that naturally. Please run faster. Something is following us.
So
Indeed,
you're not training for a marathon. If we see you running, we should know that.
You should.
Ever.
There is going to be no luck on a marathon for me ever.
If you see me running, I'm following the ice cream truck.
That I may do.
Yeah, I would be running after coffee. So yeah.
You're here. So this week, what we thought we would do is, instead of our normal news, like we normally do, in deference to our topic and the goal of being able to cover news that was timely and relevant, we thought it's Women's History Month. We are looking at all of the various panelists, that all the various experts in productivity, organization, and technology. And so what Augusto and I did was we actually looked at all of the various folks who were included in the list, and we looked to find stories that they have recently put out. And so today's episode is going to be all stuff from those who were nominees in the list. And so before we get to the quote unquote winners, everybody's a winner tonight on the list. But for those of you, for those who were nominated on the list, we thought we would go through the articles and cover some of those pieces. And so Augusto, do you want to kick us off with our first item?
Of course, except that I lost my tab, but that's it. Just empty. So the first article that we have, sorry, okay, my links are failing on me. It's an article from Realtor.com called "The Insider Secret for Organizing Your Overflowing Book Collection," and it's talking about Barbara Help. I'm going to Miss Barbara
Hemphill. Barbara
Thank you
Hemphill, the
very
paper
much.
tiger lady.
Thank you very much. And it's quoting her and talking, and it was funny because Julie said, "Oh, we can also use this one," and it was too late for me to change it. But As a person who used to have books, I don't have books anymore. I have digitized my life because we have moved 17 times in the last 18 years. So the first time we moved, I discovered that the books needed to go. Okay, there was no way. That or we needed much money so we can carry those books. So my life has started going from carrying a lot of books to going digital. But I used to have a lot of books, and I really, there is a picture on the article for the people who is listening, and please go and click on the link. It talks about organizing the books into colors, and I'm going to go to the most non-deep version of this, but I need to admit that when I saw that picture, I said, oh, I need books. The Kindle doesn't do this really well. So for the Amazon people who should be listening to us, we need to get some better way to organize our Kindle books into that way. But the article talks about different ways to organize the books, leftovers using of the decor or having in a flying shelf. I now have so little books that I can use a couple of those and have them. I think our biggest number of books at this time in our house are cooking books, because it's what my wife still like to have. Everything else I think is digital, but maybe someday somebody will make a cheaper screen that I can put on the walls and will reflect the back of my Kindle books.
Well, I'm gonna just poke in just to say that I adore Barbara. She is such a lovely person. I'm going to disagree with her, and that is to say that she talks about the idea of books being there. They said it says get rid of. Oh, she actually didn't say that. I'm sorry, Barbara. You're off the hook. She said the first step is in decluttering books is determine how much space you're willing to allot to books. To decide whether to keep a book, ask yourself, what's the worst thing that would happen if I got rid of this book and then wanted it? And if you can live with your answer, donate or toss it. What I read quickly in preparation for today was the next person who I'm not going to name her, but but she said while some books might be obvious keepers, you'll likely end up with a good sized pile of books that she calls maybes, basically getting rid of ugly or old books. And I take personal insult to the idea that there are such a thing as an ugly or old book. There's no such thing in my world. I will keep every book I own until the day I pass from this earth. I love my books and let them. They always say like, oh, there's people who are who have difficulty with disorganization and clutter and so on and so forth, and like somehow they're going to harm themselves by books falling on them and them being harmed and injured and dying. That would be a noble way for me to go. If I die from the weight of books crushing me to death, that will be the way I want to go in life. If I have to die a horrible death, so.
Ray, I did the same thing that you did when I first opened the article. I was just sort of skimming along, and when I got to get rid of ugly or old books, I'm like, Barbara said that no, that's not possible. But she did say in the first part where she's quoted something that she's very famous for saying, clutter is postponed decisions. And she says it's true of book clutter as well. And I think we very rarely think of book clutter when we think about clutter, because for the same reason you and I don't believe that there are ugly or old books that you can get rid of, because books are not about aesthetics. We don't keep books because they look good on the shelf. We keep books because books are our friends. Books are our connections to all the other worlds, real and fantastical, that we haven't visited. But Barbara does make this great notion that the first step to decluttering books, if we're willing to acknowledge that, okay, that textbook for math from like sophomore year of high school, that might be something that we can let go of. And the first step is you have to decide to look at your books and be willing to make these choices and say, okay, what's the worst thing, as she says, what's the worst thing that could happen if I didn't have this book? And I guarantee you, if I didn't have my math book from sophomore year of high school, which I do not, life goes on just fine.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think old books are old books. I think they have character. they may have notches and torn pages, but that means you've been reading them and picking them up and soaking in all that goodness, whatever that might be. Unfortunately, books don't love me, because when I start reading them, I start to fall asleep, like the real hard, like 2 pages in and I'm done. So I have to listen to books now, but I still have a collection that I love picking up, and I'll read a page because that's as far as I can get without falling on the floor. So yeah, books can't be too old. They can't be ugly at all. I don't care how tattered they are. They're just, even the way a book smells just contributes to the experience. So yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. And when I made the decision to get rid of most of my books, it wasn't easy. It was because I don't see they're ugly, or and what we was going to pick to go with us, and what, and every time we move, I look at them and say, okay, which one? The first decision for me was, what is what I need? I need the book, or I need the paper, the paper book, or I need the world and the inside world that provides. And for me, it was about the inside world. And I discovered that anyways, I was buying them paper and digital. Don't ask me why, because that's what I was doing. Because I said, well, I can stop buying one of them. That then now means I can buy more of the digital. Okay, that was the justification. Okay, at some point, and it works.
So, go ahead, Augusto.
Go.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to poke in with two items before we close out on this story, which is one, what I'm hearing just in summary is that there are useful books to us, and that there are non-useful books to us. And keeping books around just for the sake of it, I think, is a travesty. There are people who can use those books and love those books, and they don't have to be living in your home in order to do that. And so I agree on that premise. Second is that organized book collections are productive book collections. And I have a friend who says that she doesn't need to have read a book for it to be useful on her shelf, because she will potentially run through the index or run through the table of contents and extract what she needs at the time she needs it. With many, just like a dictionary, you don't read a dictionary unless you're me and 12 years old. And so don't count me out in that sense. But really, I loved the dictionary when I was that age. And so the idea, though, is that some books are not necessarily on your shelf because you want to read it cover to cover. There are books that you want to be able to reference. Even if the book is meant to be a narrative, you may just want it for the purpose of reference. So being organized doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be as beautiful as the image in that article, but it certainly needs to be structured in a way that you can find what you need to when you need to. And so I very much believe in having those functions of it being useful to you and it being organized.
Ray, you're talking to two professional organizers, and we always say the aesthetics are nice, but something has to be functional, because if it's beautiful but dysfunctional, you're going to be unhappy. But if it's functional, it'll be beautiful to you.
Yeah, I probably would be the person that would attempt to do the color coding of the books. I don't know how well I could keep up with it, so I would probably not do that after a while. But I think form and function, it just, whether it's books or other things, they kind of go together. Obviously, if you're tripping over your books, even if they're valuable to you and you read them all the time, but they're precariously perched, you are knocking into them, you may need to come up with a different solution. If they're harmful in some way, blocking more, those are the kinds of things I would be more concerned about. How it looks, I don't care about that. That's part of the character.
So now this is the moment that I open my mouth in front of 3 Evernote certified organizer, and then I said what I should not. But that is exactly, for me in particular, the only good use or incredible use Evernote has in my world. And is that I can take screenshots of books that I highlight, forward the image to Evernote. Evernote will index. And now I have that work of the library, all the books that I have, all the covers, everything indexed by Evernote. And I can come and search inbox, and it will give me every book I have read that I have at least highlighters that has the word inbox. And that is my only use of Evernote and the only reason I pay for Evernote. But no. I said I was going to get in trouble in front of the certified, but it's the only use I have, and I love it because even that I don't have a beautiful bookcase that I can come and see the books, every book that I have in PDF or Kindle or anything digital can be found in there and can be found my notes, and I can retrieve them in a second.
I don't have any
Sorry.
Go ahead, Deb. Go ahead, Deb.
If that's how he wishes to use Evernote and it is working for him, I say go for it. If that's the only use, even though it can do a whole lot more than that, I just want to say that for the record. But if that's how it works for you and it makes you happy, then I'm all for it. I'm here for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't actually have any problem with you choosing a single use or a single purpose for Evernote where it has that function and it does what you want it to do. So I don't think you're going to get an argument from the certified consultants on the panel tonight on that one. I know you wanted the conflict, Augusto. I read it.
I did not wanted the conflict. I was terrified, actually.
I know that. Okay, let's move on from Barbara Hemphill to Kira Conlon, our author of Productivity for Dummies and other books. And Kira, thank you for not hating me for mispronouncing your name last show. But then I looked it up and I've got it, and happens to be my niece's name is Kira, just spelled differently. And so I was even more mortified because I pronounced it wrong. But it is Kira. And so my great grandmother, who is hopefully not rolling around in her grave, forgives me for the mispronunciation. But Kira wrote this article, How My Positive Morning Routine Completely Changed My Life. What were your thoughts there? Anything that stood out for you in that article from Kira?
Well, I have a funny anecdote from that, because she was talking about, rise before the bull, and it came into that whole idea of negative chatter. But at the end, she talked about how she has embraced the notion of taking an icy cold shower to wake her up, and that's her way of facing the morning. And like she explained, I am also not a morning person, but last week, between the last time I saw you and now, my water heater died, and before they could replace it last Tuesday and Wednesday, I had no hot water, and I took cold showers, and I can tell you, it did not have the effect that it has for her. For me, I had my adrenaline rise and then go splat, and I felt exhausted both of those days. So I think the idea of the cold shower, like the idea of being a lark or a night owl, is very specific to the individual as to whether that's going to work. But I did like what she had to say about self-talk.
Yeah, so go ahead, Deb.
I didn't read this article, but just hearing the words cold shower made me cold. So I just started shivering, and I'm really happy that works for her and for anyone else out there who thinks that should be a part of their morning or evening or midday routine. I tip my hat to you, because if I had to stay clean by taking a cold shower, I would be dirty all the time. I would not be doing it, though I would be an early riser, just not one that would be taking a cold shower. So I tip my hat to those of you who like that.
Yeah, so Kira covers a couple of really important pieces in this article that I think are worth noting. One is routine, and she's choosing morning routine, but as I want to do on my soapbox, is to explain to people that your day is set on a scaffolding. Your day is structured by virtue of routines. And if you can master these routines, that is where real productivity gains happen. They happen in these margins, these transition points between one routine and the next. And so her mastering her morning routine and really coming to some positive outlook on it, I think is really, really powerful for all of us who want to be more productive. The way you start your day is the way in which the rest of your day will likely follow. And as well, unless you somehow capable of warping space-time, and then let's talk, because I really want to know how you're doing that. Second, though, is the idea here of the Wim Hof method, which is this notion of taking cold showers and activating different parts of your system. This is, in essence, trying to strengthen our resilience and dealing with our vagus nerves. And so the idea here is that the cold shower elicits your biological responses that will over time kind of not deaden, but lessen your immediate fight or flight syndrome. And by doing that over and over and over again, your body is capable of being more resilient. Yeah. Now, I say that with full understanding that, like Deb, if I am forced to take a cold shower, I better have a gun pointed at my head, because it's just not happening. But there's good science out there that talks about this method. There are great practitioners of the Wim Hof method, and I salute you.
Yes. So Augusto's being chased by something in order to run. You're having a gun pointed at you in order to take a cold shower.
And dying under a pile of books.
Dying under a pile of books. This is we need one of the words I learned in studying Italian is pericoloso, which means dangerous. It's like I think this podcast episode needs a pericoloso warning. Yes, warning. I didn't pronounce that with much of an Italian accent, but I think we need a warning sign on this podcast.
I love the morning routine idea, though. I think that is definitely on point. Anything that you can do to prepare for your day and set the tone for the day, I think is a good way to start. Meditation for me is that thing. I actually do it before I get out of the bed. So no to cold showers, never. That will never happen. Not even once. Will never happen. But meditating in the morning, I have done it religiously every morning without stopping for probably a month now. But in the past I've tried, sort of hemmed and hawed, stopped and started, but this was my good college try, and it has helped my day, start my day the way that I want it to, and the way I feel the world needs to receive Deb Lee when she first, puts her feet on the floor once getting up out of the bed. So I highly recommend it.
I can say that Deb and I have roomed together at NAPO conference, and she is perfect and fully formed from the minute she gets out. It's like I have one eye open and the other one I'm like pulling out to try and open. My hair is sticking up, and she just bounces out of the bed perfect and ready to start the day like
but I'm a morning person.
Or like one of the little like one of the little creatures in Cinderella or Snow White, who's just cheerful and perfect.
Because I'm a morning person, so all of my brain cells are firing, so I'm ready to go. Talk to me at like 6 or 7. No, it's 6:45 right now. Talk to me in about 15 minutes, and let's see how that goes. But thank you.
I want to add a couple of things to the morning routine, and this was my own experience. I was proud member of the Owl Club, and as I begin to look my membership of the Owl Club in around 2012, I discovered that yes, did I stay proudly until 3 or 4 in the morning working? Yes, but I get home, dinner, fool around, and waste a significant amount of time so I could disconnect from what I was doing, so I could get into the mood to really, being able to get that hour or two of pseudo productivity or productivity. And what I did was to change it to the morning. Why am wasting all this time? Let me go to sleep and try to wake up early. And I tell the story of the first week or week and a half. Okay, I wake up at 4 in the morning like this. Okay, like what Julie was describing. Okay, so no hair because there is nothing I can do in there. Okay, but other than that, okay, one eye here, one eye there. Okay, and I spent a week thinking, this makes no sense. I'm getting less productivity than what I was having when I was fooling around until midnight. But eventually what happened is the brain decided, okay, this is what you're going to do. Punish us this way. Let's get it. And adding routines in the morning, meditation is one of them for me. And I struggle with the meditation for many years until I decide to start tracking it on my watch. And the moment, I don't know why, I don't know, we can go into why, but as soon as I begin tracking that thing on the watch every day, it's, and I feel it like, oh, I didn't meditate this morning. I better find time on the calendar so I can mark it in the watch and close that ring. So
you like streaks then? You like seeing a streak of days, right? It's very motivating. It gets me to do the meditation too. And the steps, and Julie probably is tracking steps and other things in her life too. I imagine seeing that streak kind of keeps you encouraged and motivated to keep it going.
You don't have to compete with someone else if you're competing with yourself. What I love about the Fitbit is when you see the number of steps and the number of miles per day, and you see that progress. Now, I have always been a night person. In school, I had to get up in the morning. I worked in television, so I had to be up early in the morning to be there. And I was always, my game was the best it could be for me in the morning. But if I needed to have a good meeting, I scheduled that meeting in the afternoon, because as the day goes on, it's like the room gets lighter and lighter as the sunlight comes in. Well, my inner sunlight beams out as the day goes on. So, 6 a.m. to noon may as well not exist for me, but 6 p.m. to midnight, and even midnight and beyond. So I think it's kind of like the luck. It's like you can make yourself do whatever you have to do. When I first started my business, I was lucky enough to have a gig on a local TV station talking on the news about organizing and productivity. And I had to be at the TV station at 5 a.m. So there were times where I really strongly considered just not going to bed the night before, because staying up and being alert at 5 a.m. was a much better proposition than trying to fall asleep and staring at the clock until 2 and 3 and getting like an hour's of sleep. So I think all of the people who are pro morning rituals, I think that's fine, unless you can do your ritual in the evening. I set up everything the night before, so that if I'm leaving the house, literally the only thing I'm having to cope with is grooming and eating, because that's about all I'm good for the first hour and a half after I wake up.
And this is really important for people to really understand, which is to work with your biology, not against it. And I adhere to Dr. Michael Bruce's concepts of chronotypes, which are mammals as opposed to birds. So I don't use the bird analogies, but from the lion to the bear, to the wolf and to the dolphin, I recognized in Dr. Bruce's work that I was a dolphin. And that is a shocker to me, because for most of all of my life, I can't really imagine a time when I didn't. I am always up very early in the morning. And yet, when I take all the tests, including the temperature test, where he has you take your temperature throughout the course of an evening to see when your body metabolism resides, I have confirmed that I am a dolphin, meaning that there are wolves at night, and then there are people who are after that, which are dolphins. And in essence, dolphins don't sleep very well. They actually keep one part of their brain on and active at any given time, and so they actually have poor sleep. It was a remarkable relief for me to recognize that I was a dolphin and that I would always struggle with sleep, and that sleep doesn't define the work I've put in to getting good sleep, right? Like, getting good sleep is no longer on my radar. Like, it's not a thing. I do everything I can possibly do to have good sleep, but knowing that I'm not going to necessarily sleep the way that other people do was a huge relief for me. And what it allowed me to do was to actually structure my routines akin to what you're talking about, Julie, which is to say, you know what? These are times when I'm going to be able to do things throughout my day to better organize myself. And that way, I'm working with my biology as opposed to against it. And so I highly recommend, if you have not done it yet, go to thepowerofwhenquiz.com. Take the Power of When quiz. It's free. And it helps to, with pretty high accuracy, identify which of those chronotypes. Now, it is not a traditional chronotyping because it does use personality as part of that metric. So there's a little bit of goofiness going on there. But I actually, upon reading it and understanding it, I really understand why Dr. Bruce utilizes this form of social chronotyping, because so much of our biology is dictated by our social sphere, right? If you have a family, if you have a particular type of job, all of those social pressures really do impact your ability to sleep or not sleep at particular times. And so I can't but recommend folks to check out The Power of When by Dr. Michael Breus, Breus, I believe is how he spells his last name. And so with that, let's make our way into our next article, written by none other than our inimitable Deb Lee. And you write here, Deb, about the top 5 work from home productivity tips. And you give some really good foundational pieces. And this was written back in September of 2020. So we've had a pretty good, almost 6 months now of time between when you wrote the article and now. What do you feel like you learned since that time of having written the article? And then we can kind of jump in and give further thoughts on it.
I don't think that I learned anything new per se. I think that things are exactly as I anticipated back then. We were diving in head first without a plan and maybe hoping we'd get lucky with it. We didn't have a dedicated workspace. We were working at the kitchen table or on the sofa or wherever we could find a corner. We were working all the time because it was easy. We didn't have a commute anymore. For those of us who are lucky enough or privileged enough to have a position where we could work from home, we were always on. We were always Zooming. We were always just going. We wake up in PJs and we work in PJs and then we go to bed in PJs. And there was no clear demarcation between beginning of the day and end of the day. And so all those things are still true. I think maybe we might be a little bit better about having a dedicated workspace. Still tricky though, especially for those who have families or now your partner is home and that person wasn't home before. Now they're in your Zoom space. I have a client who has a different workspace depending on who's in the house with her. Because when they're in the house, she has to go someplace else to get ready for her Zoom meetings. And they have their own Zoom meetings. So things change. There is a unease. I think that's still there. I think we perhaps are maybe getting used to it a little bit. But I would recommend that we really look at ways to just separate work from personal stuff. Whether that means you have your morning routine of cold showers and brushing your teeth, and then changing out of those PJs and getting into work clothes. And work clothes could just be a t-shirt and jeans, just not your PJs that signify sleep and rest and relaxation, or your yoga pants, for those of us who like yoga pants. And then really sort of setting up your day for success, whether you're morning or evening. I think now that you work from home, you probably have a little bit more control about when you work and how you accomplish those things. And then when it's time to end the day, get out of the work clothes and get into the yoga pants or go walk the dog and then sort of signify work has now ended. I think that's probably one of the hardest things is knowing when to turn off. So I don't think that there's been much of a change, other than we're probably just tired of being home all the time.
I love that you picked this post of Deb's because it signifies exactly what was true before the pandemic for all of us who worked from home. Every one of these 5 elements is still true, and it's a yes and sort of situation. So everybody has been joking all year about how they've been living in sweats or leggings or yoga pants. And my thing was, even though I have been working from home for 20 years, except when I'm working physically with a client because the clutter's at their place and not at my place. But I learned early on, and it really revisited me over and over as we saw what was going on during the pandemic. I kept wearing blue jeans every day, or sometimes other kinds of jeans. But I know that if I got into comfy sweats or yoga pants, then I would eat all the things. And I would be now a year into it, and you would just sort of roll me out of my apartment. For me, I'm not one of those people who checks the scale every day. I check how my clothes feel. And if I were wearing something that were just all Lycra and elastic and it made it really easy to expand, I might do that. So I don't know that what I wear is any more formal than any more office worthy than what I was wearing on non-client days 2 years ago. But every single thing that Deb hit on about having a comfy workspace, work on your work-life balance, the dressing for work. I wrote dress for work, ha, with an exclamation point. Looking at meetings a different way was the one thing that I think Deb brought up, that I have friends who work in the corporate environment where literally all they did before a year ago was go to meetings all day long. And meetings have had to be different by virtue of the fact that you really cannot stare at the screen. You cannot stare at Zoom for 8 hours every day, but before you're going to have to triage people for the problem. And so I think that, Deb talks about Slack. I think any way that people can communicate other than going into a meeting that could have been an email is going to be a benefit. So I agree with Deb that almost everything about that post is still valid now, only more so. Good job, Deb.
Yeah, I really enjoy the article, and I agree. And I love that the way it's written is create a comfortable, dedicated workspace. And like you, I have a couple of clients who have come to discover, their office changed from corner to corner, depending. And figure out what are the things that you need to do to make it comfortable. And I have a client who his problem was he lost his boards. Okay, he used to have big conference room with boards. And he was really suffering by it at the beginning, a year ago. And then I were talking about, because he was really in trouble, and they say, "Oh, you're next to a window. Why you don't go and buy, window markers and clean them up in the afternoon?" And it was, the first time he wrote on the windows, I think his wife almost kill him, until he explained that they were going to delete and she was going to be fine, and he promised that he was going to clean them up every morning. I think the wife was like, "We are not going to live in our house with your window full of your work notes." But that made him really comfortable, back to being really comfortable. So that is really, really, really important. And I agree with you guys with the dress to work. I'm the worst of this because I wear shorts, and I wear shorts. If I don't need to meet a client, I will wear shorts all year long. And my kids, when they start going into the school and remote and all that, they need to use a uniform to go to school. And then the first day they went in uniform. The second day they wear, uniform waist up and then different pants. And my wife look at them and say, "Where is the uniform?" It's a Zoom meet, and we are going to go like that from the waist up. so no, I set the bad example. But from the waist up, I think everybody should dress to work.
I'll have to say that, the pandemic was when we talked about this, last year when we kind of debriefed on all of this on Anything But Idle, and it was a huge shock to my own system. I spent 80 to 85% of my time on the road, and being forced to work at home. While I had done that in the past, I did that in between, projects. I did that in between my normal travel throughout the month. It was still just a huge shock to my system, and dressing for work was great until the summer. And then, so kind of snap back, the story is that we bought a house at the end of last year, and so we moved only a mile away, but we still moved, and so now we were in a new house and we have a roof deck, and so it was like, I want to work on the roof, and so it was like one of those things. But I felt weird being like in stuffy clothing working on the roof, so I decided to kind of relax that for that context. That is, when I'm going to work on the roof, I'm going to do that. And when I have client meetings, I'm going to grab a dress shirt and I'm going to have it, sitting on the chair next to me. I can put on the dress shirt, meet with clients, and then toss it off when I'm done. And, it really worked. I mean, it just helped me find a bit of balance and solace in everything that was going on. I'm empathetic. And so just, I feel the death of all of these people in and around the pandemic, and just having everything that could allow me to just reduce that high alert distress that I was feeling from all of these families being, kind of ripped away from their loved ones who had to die in hospitals alone. All of it was on my shoulders. It was just, I was feeling it. And so, especially during the summer where I felt a little bit more like, I can take a breather, I did. And so I really hope for everybody to remember that we are dealing with a global pandemic, and there's a lot of economic disaster and economic recovery that needs to happen, and all of those things are going on. So as much as you can do to both feel formal and showing up to work, which is important, right, also try to do what you can do to calm the nerves, especially for those of us high on the anxiety scale.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. We're not just working from home, right? We are, some of us, as you said, forced to work from home under the veil of a pandemic, which is stressful in so many different ways. And for someone who loves being home, I don't need to go anywhere. I am comfortable, good eats, good coffee, perfect. But when the option to not go out arose, I was uncomfortable with that. And I recognize that that's a really minor discomfort compared to what others may be dealing with. But not being able to get up and go as I would if I wanted to, that was a little stressful. But then again, I'm in a home that I like. It's comfortable. I have everything I need. There are people who still have to get up physically and put on a uniform or work clothes and go out and do stuff. The bus driver. We're grateful
to them. We are
absolutely. Bus drivers can't work from home. The person at the checkout can't work from home. Maybe a few doctors can, but most of them are not. So, and nurses, I have many family members who are nurses, and I tip my hat to them. So I recognize my own fortune, I guess, in being able to work from home. And the minor discomfort that I feel, I think, is nothing compared to what others might be dealing with. So just understand that you are working under a pandemic, a very distressing, very not nice time. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And yes, bring in the comfort wherever you can.
Couldn't agree more. And so with that, we have reached our halfway point. I'm going to consider this our halfway point in the show. And so we're going to take a quick break from our sponsor this week. And then we're going to come back and we're going to continue our stories of the week. And then we are going to announce our top 10 female productivity, organization, and technology experts from our poll this past week. And then we're going to do new tools, and then we're going to close out. So with that, I will see you all after the break.
Are you feeling that you need help implementing a personal productivity system, a goal, or a habit like the weekly review? Do you need help making your current system more robust? Do you want a quick checkup of your current systems to ensure they are the best solutions for you? With more than 20 years of experience in technology, personal productivity, and GTD, Productivity Voice can help you review, renew, create, or fine-tune your system and your personal productivity. Visit productivityvoice.com/anythingbutidle for a free 30-minute consultation. Let's achieve more, enjoy more, and feel more wins in the game of being productive. Head over to productivityvoice.com/anythingbutidle today. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith with Augusto Pinaud, and today we have on the panel Deb Lee and Julie Bestry. And so hopefully you all have gotten a glass of water, a sip of your coffee. Let's get into the second part of our show and continue down our stories this week. Our next story, Augusto, is from Grace Marshall. And what was our story from Grace?
So the story is titled "Personal Productivity: The Conversation," and it's a blog post from actually a year ago. Great day, March 18th is a great day to post things, I think. So
Somebody's birthday is March 18th. That's why he's saying that.
Yeah, of course. That's the reason of the day. It's a fantastic day. It was. It was an article that I particularly enjoy. It's a short article, but it talks about or starts saying, it amazed me how many people try to solve the productivity puzzle on their own, and I was one of those, by the way. That's how I start in this productivity world, and I remember the first time I asked for help. And I went and asked somebody if they could help me with it was something actually in the world of getting things done 20 years ago. And it was really, really interesting how fast can you do it on your own? Maybe. If you study enough, yes. What the experience has given me and what the article refers to is how fast can you do it with help and the help with others. And if I may brag, I will. And, we have somebody in the panel who was mentioning, this may be a struggle. And this happened recently on Francis' summit, the time management, time blocking summit. And Julie bring an issue, and I had seen the solution, okay? And I sent her the text. Here is the solution for the problem she was having. Could she have found the solution? Yes, she will have found it, okay? I have no doubt. There is no credit on me for finding the solution. The credit is on how much time she saved to solve that problem, okay? That's what I was lucky. She would bring it up, and I had to, by luck, find the solution. This is the same issue on personal productivity. You want to be productive? Don't try to figure it out. Get to the productivity experts. Get to the professional organizers. You want to do Evernote? Don't do it on your own. Get the people who had already suffered all those issues, and then make it really quick for you. I wish I will have. When I was reading this, I was like, oh yeah, it was me. Oh yeah, this is me. Okay, and I wish I will have read and understood this article many, many, many years ago. I'm not sure I will have understood it when I start reading and studying personal productivity, but I wish I had.
So Grace actually asks a really important question, and this comes down to something that I've over time called the diamond rule. Others have called it the platinum rule. And she says, if you could tell me one thing about yourself that would help me to understand how you best work and how we can work together, work better together, what would it be? And this just goes to that very fundamental component that is the golden rule is selfish, and it is self-serving in so many ways, which is do unto others as I would have done unto myself is different than do unto others as they would have done unto me. In essence, what you should be asking people is, how do you best work, and how do I best work with you? And just inverting that relationship so that you can work with others better is like, I know it seems like a no-brainer, but everybody just presumes that I like email, so therefore Deb likes email, and that may not be true. And so if we can just learn how other people best work, we can then learn how to do that. And we can't do that with everybody, right? We can't possibly ask everybody their individual personalized needs. But say the closest 20 people in your world, if you just sat down and asked them what Grace is asking you to ask them, you get this compound benefit of so many things. One, the people know that you appreciate them because you're willing to actually do as they best work. And and helping facilitate that, supporting them in that. 2 is that when you work with people the way that they want to work, they're much more likely to follow their own routines, their own patterns, and therefore get the work done faster, better, what have you. And now you can learn how to actually structure your own work to match the way in which they work. So before, it was probably conflict oriented. If I called Julie and left a voicemail message, then Julie would email me back, and that's not the way in which I wanted to be responded to. And then it was just all of this conflict orientation when I could say to Julie, hey, Julie, how do you best like for me to communicate with you? And if Julie said, hey, you know what, if you just, send me a DM on Twitter, I'm good. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? I love Twitter also. I've been following this, formality of making phone calls and playing phone tag with you. Now we can just actually have a conversation the way in which we need to. People just have this sense that they need to, do things their way instead of working with people. And I think that if we just follow the diamond rule a little bit more, we'd all be more productive.
I think you're right. I think the conceit of the golden rule is that you intend kindness, that what is, treat others with the kindness that you would want to be treated. But the actual specifics aren't necessarily kind. Deb knows that if she calls me at 8 a.m. to ask me a question, she's not going to get anything intelligible from me. I know that I shouldn't call her at 10 o'clock at night to ask a question. We joked earlier this week because a couple weeks ago, I called her at like 6:30 in the evening and she didn't even say hello. She just answered the phone. She's like, is everything okay? Because she knows that I don't normally reach out to her in that way. So I love the idea of trying to verify with someone, especially, we might not think to do it in an initial circumstance, but if we're having trouble getting on the same page with someone, this question, this notion of, I want to understand, how can I help you be more productive so that we can be more productive? I think we tend to work in silos. It goes back to what Augusto said about just turning to someone and asking for help. Sure, do the work on your own. Don't expect everybody to just hand you something on a silver platter. But sometimes you just are blocked. You can't figure something out because Augusto says, I would have found the solution myself. That particular thing that he's talking about, it might never have occurred to me that there was a low-tech, low-cost solution. And I probably would have just kept working on a workaround. But by mentioning the problem and opening myself up in that way. So I think working with other people means being willing to be a little vulnerable and saying, I am not perfect and I do not have all the answers. And being vulnerable is actually powerful. Benjamin Franklin said that one of the best ways to get somebody to like you, to be disposed toward you, is actually to ask them for help in solving a problem. And it's an intriguing idea. Usually we don't want to be beholden to someone else, but it actually makes you closer to somebody, I think, when you're willing to show that level of vulnerability, that you can't do it all on your own, and you respect the other person enough to ask for their opinions and their thoughts.
I would just put a nod in here to Dr. Brene Brown and her research into vulnerability and the importance and power of vulnerability in so many areas of life. And so absolutely, definitely underscoring that. Any other thoughts for Grace Marshall's article? And then we will move our way along to the next article by Gretchen Rubin, which is actually a podcast episode. Okay, so Gretchen Rubin hosts a podcast with her sister, and I always get her name wrong, so someone can correct me.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, thank you. I don't know why I want her name to be different, but so Happier with Gretchen Rubin and Elizabeth. They did an episode called "A Little Happier: The Memory of a Delicious Night of Sleep 400 Years Later." And so, what did you get out of this particular episode? And let's get into it.
I got the reminder that it's Samuel Pepys and not Pepys the way it's spelled, because I always get that.
Absolutely. So this is a diary entry or a diary from this person who talks about his sleep, and they quote a passage in the entry to the podcast episode, and I'll read it just so folks can kind of get an idea here. And it says, quote, "And I still believe it. I still remember it, that of all the nights that I've ever slept in my life, I never did pass a night with more epicurism of sleep, there being now and then a noise of people stirring that waked me, and then it was a very rainy night, and then I was a little wary that what between waking and sleeping again, one after another, I never had so much content in all my life, and so my wife says it was with her." And so the idea here is that like sleep state is something to appreciate, to enjoy in that sense. And the only thing I could take away from that article is I don't know what that's like, and that is wonderful that you all know what that's like, but I'm a dolphin and we do not have that sleep state. So it was like I was actually like I'm awed. I'm actually like I'm fully awed. My brother is a very good sleeper. He loves sleep. He sleeps well. He relishes in sleep, akin to this gentleman. And I don't appreciate sleep that way, and only because I haven't experienced it. I know what a good night's sleep is, but I don't know what that is. And I really enjoyed it, and because I have to live vicariously through others in order to enjoy that level of sleep that people have. So that's what I took away from it.
I have a question for you about how sleep does or does not impact how productive you think you can be on any given day. Does that have any bearing on your day?
Yes. So I need a regular night's sleep like anybody else, but the amount and quality of my sleep is just different than others. So as a dolphin, as most dolphins are, and this is of course gross, estimation because everyone is different. But in terms of my biology, when I sleep, I am easily aroused. Like I'm easily awoken. I'm capable. If you walk up to me at any given time of night and say, "Hey Ray, what's the square root of 9?" I'll be like 3, and we're gonna go. That's like it's just the nature. It's the nature of my my ongoing world, and so because at least what Dr. Bruce says, since one part of you is always semi-conscious, you're always on high alert, right? And so this level of high alertness is just there for me at all times. Now, I have chosen to do a couple of things to mediate that. One is when possible, I try to take a short, usually 15-minute nap midday, to allow me to, in essence, buffer. It's not about deep sleep. It's not about getting into deep sleep. It's actually about reducing anxiety. And so it's like my days are very active, and they're, I would say, hyperactive. And so this idea of just giving myself time to not go to sleep necessarily, like when I say nap, it's really a brief meditation in essence. And so you're giving yourself some time to just step away from the hecticness of the world. When I do sleep and I have a very restful night of sleep, it's a weird feeling. It really is for me, because I wake up with a sense of nothing having happened, which when I sleep, I never remember my dreams. So others of you in the world out there, you may remember your dreams, and that's great. That's a normal, healthy mind. For me, I do not remember anything that happens, but I know things happened. And so there's this always clouded set of things going on in my world. And that's because I'm taking in stimuli while I'm sleeping. And so I have this half remembrance of things going on in my world. And the few times that I have actually remembered sleep, they're traumatic. And so they're like recurring dreams where the same thing is happening over and over again. And it's very, very disturbing. And so that's the difference between, I think, the dolphin mind. And I'm not I'm not necessarily the only kind of dolphin mind. So others may have very happy dreams and they just repeat all the time. But that tends to be my experience of sleep. And so it's just like, I'm not like, this is by no means like, I'm not sad about it. I'm not glad about it. It just is. But what Dr. Bruce did was he gave me the permission to understand my brain a little bit more. And someone who loves neuroscience, just understanding that component that I was trying. I was spending a lot of time and a lot of money on all kinds of therapies to be able to try and sleep in a way that other minds sleep. And I'm just never going to have that sleep. And so it was really nice for me to be able to just like, you know what, I can appreciate how you sleep and appreciate that, there's some people who like, they only sleep 5 hours a night and they're great. My mother's a dolphin also. And so clearly I get that. Now, not all of there are 6 of us and my siblings. And so not all of us are dolphins. I just happen to have gotten the same dolphin mind that my mother did. And you bet, any time of night, you just walk in and say, "Hey, Mom, where's the flower in the cupboard?" She'll be like, "Oh, second shelf, second one from the bottom." And she's awake. You think she's awake? She's really not. She's half asleep, just like I would be. But that's just how our brains work, and it's just you just kind of get used to that notion. But we all have to be aware of our biology, and that is one of the things that we have to really be conscious of.
I'm just imagining somebody turning on the podcast in the middle and hearing you say, "My mother's a dolphin."
But you see, there is no perfect on that one because I can sleep anywhere deeply. Okay. For years I travel and I was out. Okay. Before I buckle up and put my head in the bag and I was out. And my daughter, before COVID, did competitive swimming. That means you need to wake up, at 4 or 5 in the morning. So you drive to wherever the competition is. And I could sit on those benches, okay, and get in there and snore and sleep delicious, okay? No issues at all. But then I need to be really conscious of that because I can be, if I'm not paying attention and I get relaxed, I can fall asleep. I can go put my head in the back of this set, okay, and I will be out in 2 minutes, okay, and I will miss the rest of the show. So it is not perfect either for those of us who are really lucky and can sleep anywhere and in any way. Then we have the problem that we need to be over aware because otherwise I will cross my arms in here, do like this. You can make all the noise you want. I'm out. There's nothing.
All right. So I'm going to be picking and choosing as we make our way through the next several articles just for time purposes. And so our next article, I'm actually going to pick out our one and only Julie Bestry. She wrote an article called Flow and Foe, Accountability, Productivity Focused, and Alex Trebek. Julie, do you want to go ahead and give us a little quick summary of your article and what you covered, and then we can hop into it? You're muted.
You got to do it once per.
Hey, yeah, it happens to everybody. It happens to everybody.
The prior week, I had done a blog post about the 5 different types of accountability, and I had at the summit at the task management and time blocking summit that we all attended a little over a week ago. I had gotten into some conversations about the fact that many of those methods required people to deal with other people, and both the introverts I spoke with and also some of the extroverts who didn't want to have a camera on or just didn't want to deal with other human beings were looking for some other solution. And I thought about some other posts that I had written in the past and came up with the idea of faux accountability, which was a way to sort of countermand all this Zoom weariness, that Zoom fatigue that we've been experiencing, and talked about how all the different ways that we can be distracted in our attempt to get accountability. We don't feel comfortable feeling observed. We feel like we have to be social with the other person. I should say that Deb ran one of her great action days last Friday, where we did this sort of group accountability thing. And she runs these so well that whatever obstacles someone may have, she's able to countermand them so that this works for everyone. But my notion was that if we were going to get accountability and we were going to get into flow, then we were going to need some sort of faux accountability. And I went through a number of solutions. They're primarily websites with a few apps, Coffeetivity and Hipster Sound and Noisley's Cafe Restaurant. These various services where you could have a sort of auditory experience that feels like being in accountability. So it sounds like you're in an office, or it sounds like you are in a coffee house, or one of the ones that was really popular because, Hemingway said, write drunk, edit sober, is you could go to a website called I Miss My Bar and listen to bar sounds. And I ended at the Alex Trebek part in honor of him, as someone created an Alex Trebek affirmation page where you get all the way from 400 to 2000. There's a daily double, all of that. And you get to click on any one of those things in any one of those categories, and you get the sound of Alex Trebek giving you affirmation. So you have had faux accountability and you have gotten into flow. That's where the flow and faux comes in. And then you get Alex Trebek telling you you did a good job. And sometimes you just need that pat on the back. So
absolutely. Yeah. You bring up some really interesting stuff here, which is that I have long talked about accountability. That it's one of my what do you call them? Soapboxes. It's one of my soapboxes. I absolutely believe that accountability is one of the foundations to us being more productive. And I think about them in a different way than the 5, now kind of 6 that you've created here, which is really unique and interesting. And so just so that people are on the same page, the way in which I see accountability is we start from self-accountability. And what you're really talking about is using behavioral interventions in a self-accountability perspective. And so Gretchen Rubin, she would consider that in the 4 tendencies, someone who's an upholder and someone who tends to use self-accountability to great effect. We then step it up a level to paired accountability or one-to-one accountability. This could be in a paid or unpaid environment, right? You can ask a friend, hey, meet me at the gym when we go back to the gym and we're back out there in the real world. Hey, meet me at the gym, or meet me at the corner of 5th and Main, and we're going to go for a run in the morning. That's one-to-one accountability. You can also have a coach like Augusto who comes and helps you do that, or with the both of you, right? A professional organizer who comes and helps you and uses that pair accountability to be able to make good on some goal or aspiration that you might have. We then step it up to group accountability and then public accountability. Group accountability is, in essence, more than one person. Basically, the group is holding each other accountable to that point. And then finally, public accountability is when you make those kinds of public statements. I'm going to go run a marathon, and you post that all over Facebook, and you tell people, I'm raising money for, breast cancer, or for, March of Dimes or something like that. And I'm going to go ahead and raise funds and do that kind of thing. And so we have these different levers within those layers of accountability that allow us to be able to create greater momentum. And I really think about this not so much as so accountability falls inside of motivation as an umbrella because it is a motivational factor, but really I consider it momentum. Accountability is all about creating and sustaining momentum. And so I, of course, love the article. I think anything that talks about accountability and people becoming more aware of accountability is so important and really imperative to what I call getting more done, right? This is this notion of being able to be more productive. And it's easy to structure organization and do all those kinds of things. But if you're not actually capable of getting more done, then you always feel the sense of being held back. And accountability is a great factor in all of that.
And if you're an obliger, like you talked about being a Gretchen Rubin upholder, I'm an obliger. I am much more likely to accomplish something if I know that someone else is waiting for it. So yes, I know that the accountability partner doesn't really, really care if I get my blog post written, but there's that sense that they care. For me, an action day like working with Deb is going to work better than just being able to get in the flow. I don't really feel accountability from those apps that make it sound like I'm in an office, but it does help with the flow, but not so much with the accountability. If you're a rebel, if you're one of her rebels, I'm not sure what works to motivate you and keep you going.
You know, it was interesting when I look at the article, because for me, when this started, I've been working at home for a while. When this started, I now gained 3 roommates and 3 office coworkers who are way louder than what we had before. And you know, when people talk about the music and the noise, and it produced me such a level of anxiety because I want quiet, okay, not noise, quiet. That has been my struggle this year, has been quiet. People, I need to think, and I cannot think on that many noise. But it's important, again, as we were saying earlier, about your routine, your morning routine or your afternoon routine, or you are an early person or not, to know what it is and what is the level of noise or distraction that you need to work really well with others. I mean, mine is silence, but that's mine. And I'm going to say, if you are in my team of silence, you know, it is much easier to be on the team of people who can raise the level of different noises and find concentration that way. But I love that. I have not seen the Alex Trebek thing until I read your article. And I actually sent it to a couple of people who are fans of Trebek, and they were really, really excited.
Deb?
Yeah, I'm not sure that hearing office sounds would help, but they might, because, you know, like Augusto, I like pin drop silence. I want no sounds. Don't interrupt me. Don't talk to me. Don't walk by me. I don't want to see in my peripheral vision. Just go away. That's me. But I also love going to coffee shops. One, for coffee, right? And good eats. But also I hear chatter. There's a hum. It's not too loud. I can't hear what people are saying, but I hear them. And there is a collective vibe I am feeding off of that fuels me. And I love that. But it has to be that or silence. It can't be anything in between. And like Julie, if I have to report in to someone, or if I know someone is waiting for something from me, I am more likely to get it done. So having just the audio by itself probably wouldn't do it. But knowing that there is another body, another mind who has a high expectation, as high as I have for myself, that would definitely motivate me to get it going and get stuff done. So an action day worked well for me. As Julie knows, I was having trouble writing a blog post, and I actually saw her there, and I think of Julie as an excellent writer. So I channeled my inner Julie and put some words put some words on my laptop. I don't think I was as, proficient as she is, but it was motivating. And knowing that I would have to report back to this group, I mean, first of all, I'm hosting the group, right? And if I were to report back to a group that I'm hosting that I got nothing done and I didn't do my blog post, I don't know how good I would feel about that. So there is something to be said for accountability and how motivating it can be and how much it can get the momentum moving in the direction that you want it to go in.
I think it's interesting that we all work from home. I mean, Ray was out on the road, but then came back for last year. But for people who liked going to work, I like it quiet, or I like white noise. I love working while the washer dryer is on or the air conditioning is on. When I tested out all of those apps, I learned that I had to completely turn off I think it was the one, I Miss My Colleagues. I turned off the barking dog completely. But the sound of typing in the background, it was that very steady, relaxing sort of typing. The coffee house one, I had to get rid of like the noise of the clinking cups, but that low hum of the people in the room. I think if you miss your office, if you miss working around other people, Augusto, you have 3 new coworkers, and 2 of them are not adults, and that makes a difference for those people who went from having that busy hum of every day to maybe a silent home. I think apps like these can help replicate what helped them be productive when they were being productive at work. And again, this all comes to everything we've been saying all day, that productivity is specific to the individual and to the individual circumstance. If I am filing, I want more noise than if I'm trying to write.
Absolutely. All right. So for time purposes, Augusto, we're going to have one more story selected from our list of winners here.
Before you go there, I need to say this. We don't know if whenever pandemic ends and we can go back to normal life, we may see this application, but you will be able to pick the kids and the voice of the kids, so they go dad, or mom, so we can get that to focus again.
As long as it's not my dog barking, I'm okay. I am done with that. I am really done with that. I love him. I really do love the dog, but I could deal without it. All right. One more story, Augusto. What is our final story this week before we go into our new tools of the week?
I don't know.
I thought you had said that you had a final story. So I'm going to go ahead and pick.
You need to pick that final story.
Sure. Let's go with Mel Robbins, productivity hacks to jumpstart your dreams. Did anyone have any thoughts about Mel Robbins' article here about the idea of changing process so that you can be more productive and start making some goal-oriented decisions or goal-oriented movement in your world? Everybody's jumping to find the article.
Yes.
I had notes on everything. And did you change the order? Because I am missing Mel's. I changed
the order. I just skipped a couple items, or like 5 items. So if you go down 5 items,
I'll have to open it to see what it was, because I'm not seeing my notes on that.
So Mel Robbins is very famous for the 5-second rule, which is that if you have an impulse to do something, and if you decide to do that thing in 5 seconds or less, you're likely to do that thing. And so there's pretty good research on the idea that the faster you make the trigger internal and start making action, the more likely you are to do something. And she talks in the article about different ways in which you can create environmental triggers. And while I tend to be not so bullish on the idea of habits, she uses the notion of using environmental triggers and visualization for being able to move forward on these things. And I can get around that. And she talks about a couple of other hacks that she uses. Any that stand out for you in that sense?
As an organizer, I thought what was interesting is the idea of having vision boards or even tattoos, visual things as triggers, because so often I find that people become clutter blind and don't notice the things that they have put up as reminders. And I'll admit that if I put something up visually, I am a verbal person, but not a visual person. And if it's not on a screen, I tend not to notice it if I'm in my own space. So I liked what she had to say. She was talking about David Goggins' mental cookie jar, and the idea that you sort of have this mental collection of all the places in your mind where all of the anecdotes, all of the stories are. And then she says, whenever you're facing a challenge in your life, you can go back to your cookie jar and pick a relevant lesson. And I think that works for me. The idea, because I know I will be in a situation and a quote from the West Wing will pop up, and I will find a way to make that relevant to my life. Or I've always said, if something bad happens to you and you make it through the other side, then it becomes a cocktail party anecdote, and then it's a good thing. So anything bad that you survive becomes a story you can tell, and that story becomes useful to yourself and to others. So I like that cookie jar metaphor. It seemed more workable for my odd little brain, as opposed to the bracelets and I'm never getting a tattoo.
Yeah, no tattoo here. Not a fan of pain, and I enjoy seeing them, but not on me. Visualization, I think, is amazing, and I use it fairly often, especially when I have to do something that I think is hard. It may not be hard at all, but I think it is. And so I walk myself into the future and I picture myself doing that thing like a rock star, whatever that may be. Sometimes it's being on camera, like now. Sometimes it's a big project or a proposal that I need to prepare. And I think, oh gosh, they're not going to like this, or they're going to say no or whatever. And so I visualize myself just knocking it out of the park. And the feeling, and then I sit with those feelings. I let those feelings of just amazing success. It hasn't happened yet, but I know what that's going to feel like to me if I get what I want to get done. And I sit with those for a while. And then I walk myself back in time to present day. And I say, okay, what's my first step? I'm just going to do that one thing, because the next one is going to lead me all the way to that great feeling. And it's the feeling. James Clear likes to talk about emotions and how the feelings of pleasure will motivate you to not only do something, but to keep doing that something, right? And so that feeling of amazement of just knocking it out of the park and feeling like a rock star is what gets me to keep going. So I would absolutely, I can definitely get behind visualization. Absolutely, 100%.
Interesting. For me was the if-then planning. I have vast collection of poor habits that I've been fighting most of my life, and I have used that if-then so much. I tell a lot the pizza example. Pizza is my comfort food. Give me stress, and I want pizza. And every time my brain says pizza, I need to stop and really have a negotiation there with a bowl. And is this pizza because we are stressed? Then let's do something else. Or it is pizza just because I really like pizza. But like that, there are so many things in my particular life that I do this if then. And I have learned to mark as flags that, hey, if this thing, we need to stop and analyze what it is. We cannot act out of them, because otherwise I will go to the poor choice every time, always. So that if then, it's really, really, really useful, and learn what are those triggers and what they mean, and how can you find a solution to fight them. Did I win every time over pizza? No, but I win now every day. I win more, and
Yes.
that's what it is. And important to remember those things.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to learn more about the if-then perspective, look up Implementation Intentions by Dr. Peter Gollwitzer and Gail Ottigan. Dr. Ottigan and Gollwitzer have studied this quite extensively and have written on the concept of implementation intentions, and they are very powerful. All right. That brings us to not the end of the stories, because there are more of them. What we will do is we will place those all into the show notes so everybody can see all of the great work that is being put out there by all of these female productivity, organization, and technology experts, including our two here on the panel. But for time purposes, let's move into our new tools of the week. And so every week, Augusto and I scour the web for all kinds of stories. We did for this week also, and we're going to punt them all to next week. So you're going to get a whole bunch of stories in the extras both this week and next week, because we did cover a lot of stuff this week that we could not talk about in the show. And so those will all be in there. But we come across a lot of tools, and we like to share those tools with you. And so in New Tools of the Week, we invite our panelists also to share tools that they enjoy using or know about and want to share with folks. So this week, I thought, because of a little bit of news coming out of Google with the Chromebooks, I am going to be talking about a tool that is actually kicked into the Google Store. And this is the Chromebook tool that allows you to be able to choose which Chromebook would be best for you. And so the way in which you do this is you just go to google.com/Chromebook. And then if you click on the Find Yours, you will then be taken to the shop. And what it does is it helps you go ahead and decide which Chromebook would be best for you. And of course, Google Chromebooks run using the Google Chrome OS, the operating system Chrome OS. And so you could just go ahead and select the various pieces here that you're looking for, and it will go ahead and helps choose the right Chromebook for you. So you can say, okay, I'm looking for a premium Chromebook, and I want these particular features. I want to have a convertible screen. I want to be able to have a fairly large screen size. And lo and behold, it then gives you a filtered list of the various Chromebooks that are out there. It's a very handy tool. It's looking at the entire ecosystem of Chromebooks that are out there. And lo and behold, if you want a large screen and these are the various options that are out there, this is pretty close to what I would recommend to most people. I think we should put this Spin 514 a little bit higher on the list. But it gives you a pretty good reduction in terms of filtering out what are all the options for Chromebooks and giving you a subset that will really work for you. And Chromebooks are becoming more and more powerful each month with each iteration of new models coming out on the market. There are a lot of them, and now you're capable of kind of just filtering it down to the ones that are useful to you. All right, with that, Augusto, what is your new tool this week?
My new tool of the week is an application called Sorted. And Sorted basically do a couple of things. One allows you to have your task for the day and allows you to what they call hyper schedule those. But more interestingly, and that is really interesting and useful, but also it turns every item on your calendar as a task. So at the end of the meeting, you can cross the meeting as done, and it will disappear from the list. So not only you can schedule your task, mark them done, and see empty at some point, the same thing happen to your calendar events. And it is a really, really interesting way, an interesting approach that I haven't seen before, that looks into, all those appointments at the end of the day is a task that I need to do, but I can mark it done. I already have the meeting out of my view, that the calendar will always keep it there. So it gives you, as the day progresses, a shorter list that it gives you at least that feeling, or give me that feeling that I'm winning this game instead of losing. That is what sometimes happens.
Fantastic. All right. Next up is Julie. Julie, what is your new tool this week?
Okay, my new tool is an old tool that keeps being a new tool for me. I have been a Mac girl since 1985. And every time I get a new Mac, the fonts aren't right. The crazy animations that are going across the screen bother me. And there are so many things that I found that you can't adjust in preferences. And I was delighted a while back to find that this tool, it's freeware created by this German guy who has given us access to additional preferences that Apple settings that Apple has built into the OS, but they're hidden. You can't get to them unless you use Terminal. And I am not the type of person who's going to open up Terminal and try and figure out the right command and risk obliterating my whole computer. So you can adjust things like the default font for each icon on your desktop. You can adjust things for how the dark menu bar and the dark backgrounded dock work. And the neat thing is that it is designed to be backwards compatible. It's not an app. It's actual separate software for each iOS iteration. So you could still be using Puma or El Capitan or High Sierra or all the way to Big Sur, and there's a version that will work for you. So, and it's completely reversible. So if you do something that you don't like, it is literally as easy as clicking a box to get things where you want to go. And if you just want to reset everything to Apple specs, there's one thing to click and that's it. And I like things that are both easy and reversible in case you make a boo-boo.
Yeah, this is fantastic. It's like the system preferences that should have been. Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. And Deb, what is your new tool this week?
So my new tool really isn't a new tool per se, but I have been using it quite a bit. It's Basecamp. So it is amazing for teams. It can help a team leader see what the team is working on. There is a section called What's on Your Plate or What's on My Plate. So instead of calling or texting, you can actually just go to that person's plate and see what they're working on. So there's I don't see it as micromanaging. I just see it as sort of a checking in and seeing how things are going, so you can figure out what your next steps might be. I also love the list feature, and every time you put a check on something that you've done, so it's a to-do list, every time you check it off, it sort of drops it down off of your main view down below, and it shows as completed or done. And I am the sort of person that if I were writing a to-do list on paper, I would write it and then cross it off or put a check mark. And so that really works well with my brain. So I love that a lot. So really perfect for teams. And also if you're using it on your own, you can see what's outstanding for yourself. So you can look at your stuff. There's a section called My Stuff. Once you're in there, you see all of your meetings. You see all of the things that have due dates. You see things that you've worked on. You can communicate with others in it. You can tag. You can use emojis, which I love using, of course. So I'm really loving Basecamp these days a lot.
Fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm a fan of the folks at Basecamp. And so thank you everybody for the tools of the week. And of course, that brings us to our highlight of the show, which is our nominees being selected for our top 10 female productivity, organization, and technology experts of 2021. Let's just plan on doing it again next year. Why not? So with that, what we did last week was we had people nominate, and we had roughly about 24, 25 entries into it, and we're just cutting it off at 10. But really, the reality is in the episode, you'll see us list everybody and links to everyone. So by all means, check out all of the people here on this list. They are all doing wonderful things in the world of productivity, organization, and technology. And so with that, I'm going to just rank order from 10 to 1 in terms of the winners, and I'm going to place them on screen just so we can see them together. So those of you who are watching along, it's not going to be as suspenseful as those of you who are listening. But let's go from the bottom up. So in 10th place, the winner of the 10th place slot is Laura Vanderkam. She came in at 10th, and that was in I guess 2 10th place spots, but Barbara Hemphill came in for that spot as well. 7.29% for Barbara Hemphill and for Laura Vanderkam. And so Barbara Hemphill, I'm going to consider her 9th place. I don't know, 9th and 10th. I don't know how you do that in the ranking order, but they're in the two spots there for 9th and 10th. Just above them is Judith Kolberg. And actually, Julie, I believe you were the one who nominated Judith Kolberg originally, and she got quite a number of votes and is in the 8th spot. Next up is Mel Robbins. She pulled in 10%. We have a lot of of like exact numbers of people who they got the same percentages. But either way, Mel Robbins and then Julie Morgenstern rank as 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Was that right? Yeah. So 6th and 7th there. And so Julie Morgenstern and Mel Robbins fall into that. And then right above them are our 2 panelists tonight. Congratulations. But Deb Lee and Julie Bessery rank as our 4th and 5th place winners today. And then above them is Stacy Harmon, another fellow Evernote certified consultant and also my fellow Evernote regional leader for North America. And so congratulations to Stacy. Hope you're out there hearing this. And then Penny Zenker comes in 2nd place, and drum roll, 1st place, someone I didn't actually know existed until 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, is Grace Marshall. Grace Marshall comes in at 36.2% as our top female productivity, organization, and technology expert of 2021. And so congratulations.
I I'm tickled that Deb and I tied. I think that's perfect. But I'm sure Deb would agree. It's an honor to be nominated.
Indeed it is.
Absolutely.
And we didn't have to put on Spanx to walk the red carpet. That's even better.
Really happy about that.
Our goal here was really just to elevate the voices of people doing really wonderful things out there in the world. And I know that so many times people are not getting the kind of billing, and it doesn't matter what gender. Most of the people doing the real hard work, the good work of working one-to-one with people and in small group environments all over the world, they're not getting the attention they need. And I know that it's even that much more difficult in the female world, right? When we talk about the top tier in productivity, for example, it tends to be a male-oriented world. And so the idea of just giving a greater voice and a platform for them in even our small way, that Augusto and I can do, I'm just very excited to be able to do that. And it is my mission to just continue elevating the voices of people who are doing great work and not being heard as best and as much as they should be. And so I'm just glad that some folks who are not New York Times bestselling authors and not big ticket people ended up on the list, especially the two of you who are really out there doing wonderful work. And I appreciate the work you're doing with people, helping them be more organized and be more productive. Really, the work you're doing is so wonderful and useful to people. So thank you for doing the work that you do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I need to agree with that, and the only thing I will disagree is that it's your mission instead of our mission, but in everything else I agree with you.
Yes. Well, it's our mission on this show. It is my mission in life. So I I take rank choice top billing there for that very reason. But I'm just really tickled pink that we were able to do this, and I appreciate everybody who voted, everybody who nominated people in and for this. I just enjoy the engagement in the community, and I know that I speak on Augusto's behalf as well, and just thanking everyone for everybody's engagement there. So with that, we have reached the top of our show. Our time together is short, and I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to get to know Julie and Deb a little more. Now, one of our top 10 female productivity organization and technology experts of 2021. Closing out, Julie, how can people keep up to date with you and the work that you're doing? Where should they check you out?
Just follow my name, juliebestry.com. That's the easiest way. And from there, you can get to the blog and read and see everything, including me talking about how much I love the three of you.
With that, thank you very much, Julie, for joining us both last week and this week, and all of your help in getting ready for this top female productivity organization and technology experts of 2021.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, wonderful. And Deb, how can folks keep up to date with the work you are doing and find you out there in the world?
Well, I can be found at dalisonlee.com. And everywhere on social at dalisonlee. D. Allison Lee is actually my name. Those are my initials. So D for Debbie and Allison Lee, middle name, last name Lee. So yeah, dalisonlee.com.
Thank you so much. This was your first time on the show. I hope it's not your last time on the show.
I hope not. I'd love to be back.
Take care. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right, Augusto. And then there were two.
Then there were two. Famous sentence of Agatha Christie.
All right. Thank you so much, as always, for helping us get ready for Anything But Idle each week.
My pleasure.
All right. With that, everyone, we have lots of stuff that is caked into the show notes. We had a lot to cover, and we couldn't cover everything in the show. So, like always, if there's something that we did miss, first, check out the show notes. So if you go to anythingbutidle.com/048, that will take you to the episode for today. There on that page, you will find all the show notes with links to all the stories, tools of the week, all of the extra stories we didn't get to cover today. It will also include a text transcript that's both readable on the page. Just click on that read more link and it'll expand it and you'll be able to read there. You can also download it in PDF. That way you can read it, say, on your tablet while listening to the show as well. But if there is something that we missed, if there's a story we missed, by all means, head over to our contact page at Anything But Idle. So if you go to anythingbutidle.com, you can click on contact and go ahead and send us a message. You can also tweet or DM us using our Twitter handle for the show at Anything But Idle. And so just find us on Twitter and go ahead and do that. If you have a question or comment, again, go right back to anythingbutidle.com. Go to the episode page. You can leave a comment on that particular episode page for us. If this is your first time watching the live stream, if you click that subscribe button, it'll give you a bell icon to be able to notify you about our show that goes live weekly. And if you're listening to the podcast show after the fact, feel free to consider adding us to your favorite podcast app. It might say subscribe or follow in your podcast app of choice, but it's just basically your ability to add our podcast to the app, and it's free, and you just get the downloaded episodes each week once we put them out on usually Tuesday mornings, but the following day of the show. If you've enjoyed spending time with us, feel free to go ahead and click the thumbs up icon on YouTube. If you are listening to the podcast after the fact, feel free to leave a rating or review in your preferred podcast app if it allows you to. So with that, thank you all for leaving those reviews. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and see you all next time on Anything But Idle. Here's to your productive life.